So, ladies and gentlemen, there is something rotten in the continent of Europe. And definitely there is something rotten in the state of Denmark too. But before complaining, I would like to thank the Free Press Society for offering me this floor today to speak about my thoughts. It's not a matter of course anymore. Not in Europe 2016 for a critic of Islam to speak freely. This event was about to be cancelled because of many reasons. Miscommunication between Germany and Denmark. We still don't know yet who is really responsible for that, but I can tell you the story so that you understand what's going on, what's going wrong in the communication between the European Union. As you have heard, I am living under police protection. Usually, I wouldn't be here alone today. Usually, there are always 7 gentlemen from a special unit from the German police, which is well trained to deal with terrorist attacks, who are always with me in Germany and outside of Germany. So, after we arranged this event today, I told the German police about my plans, and the German police sent a letter to the German Foreign Ministry. The German Foreign Ministry sent the letter to the Danish Foreign Ministry. The Danish Foreign Ministry sent the letter to the Ministry of Interior Affairs. The Ministry of Interior Affairs in Denmark sent it to the unit responsible for protecting foreign guests. And in this communication and back, they had to send the same letters back again. So the German police just wanted to have a permission to enter Denmark to protect me during this event. First, because my life is in danger and the German police has information that I cannot tell here why my life in danger is. And second, because also Denmark has a history of terrorist attacks and security gaps in protecting events just like this event. So, until Friday, the Danish police and the Danish authorities didn't answer. So, we sent these things weeks ago. Obviously, it's much easier for a terrorist to enter Denmark than for a foreign police to protect somebody whose life is in danger. I don't know, like, now everybody's trying to find excuses. So some people here are saying, oh, we thought it was a private visit. We thought? With whom? Why don't you communicate directly with the German police? They will tell you the story, why I'm here. We thought. And even if it was so, where is your problem that the German police will enter to protect me? They have a good reason. They don't do that for fun. They have a good reason. It costs thousands and thousands of euros to do these measures. And they don't do it for fun. They have good reasons. So where is your problem? Are you afraid that the Germans will invade Denmark again? They don't do that anymore. They are nice now. They're welcoming refugees if you read the news. What are you afraid of? What could have happened? Well, I'm used to these things. You know, I used to spend time in Copenhagen like long time ago, like 7 years ago, and I was having an apartment here in Copenhagen, and then on Christmas Eve, I was invited for dinner, and I came back, and my apartment was robbed, completely robbed, everything. I called the police. It took time. And when the police arrived, I remember the word, and I was asking what it meant. It said, skate, skate. Yeah, what happened has happened. And then he was telling me, you are not the only one. 700 other apartments have been robbed today in Copenhagen. In one night, 700 apartments. And I told him, thank you so much. Now I feel much better. Now I feel safer in this. I was just trying in a small town of 600,000 people, 700 apartments in one night. That would have meant in Berlin something like, how many, 4,000 apartments in one night? The interior minister would be fired immediately. That it means you don't have a security system. So the German police has a reason, because what happened in February last year here is alerting the people that there are some security gaps. And on Friday, thanks to the Free Press Society, they contacted the authorities. Some journalists were reading the story on my Facebook site, intervened and were asking, and then they said, you will get all the protection you need and the German police can come in too. It was a wrong promise. They didn't send a letter of approval to the German police. So they were trying just to calm the journalists. So from this podium, I would like to ask who is responsible for that. It's my right as a European citizen, it's my right as a writer, as a simple citizen. Who is responsible for that? You cannot just hide it and pass it away. And this is not the first time I get through this stuff. Yeah, so the last 3 weeks were quite tough for me. 10 days ago, exactly 10 days ago, on the 16th of September, my book, The Islamic Fascism, should have been published in France, in French language. So, but the publisher got scared after the terror attacks of Nice, and he canceled the publication. Just like this, wrote me a letter telling me that after Charlie Hebdo and after Nice, I'm not sure that I can protect my co-workers in the publishing house. And of course, to add some kind of dignity to his decision, he said, the time in France right now is not ready for that kind of polarization and discussions, and we don't want to put more water on the mills of the right wing. And I said, okay. Like to make a virtue out of fear. He could have just said, you know what, 1.5 years ago I said, Je suis Charlie, and today I have to say, I'm not Charlie anymore. I would have accepted that. And in fact, it's a serious matter. It's a matter of life and death, and I don't want to force anybody to take such a decision. But he knew everything about me and my book, and he was very enthusiastic about it. So why all of a sudden try to cover the fear by saying it might add water on the mills of the right wing or the radicals? No. I always say to try to prevent critical Islam to reach the middle of the society, the center, political center and the center of the society. To try to prevent it, you are in fact kneeling down in front of Islamists and racists. So if you don't want the racists to take over this debate, bring it into the center of the society and the center of politics, because criticizing Islam right now is not only a human right, but a human duty. We have to do that because we have a serious problem with that. On Friday, I was supposed to speak in the city of Dortmund in Germany. And just 1 week before the event, the city hall decided to cancel the event. Why? Because they were afraid that Salafists will make kind of riots and they will get angry and demonstrate against my speech. So the city that allowed a monster to grow and give the Salafists always a podium to speak. No single event of the Salafists in Dortmund was cancelled in this city before. But because they are afraid of the Salafists, of the radicals, they would rather cancel an event of somebody who is criticizing the Salafists. That's today's Europe 2016. You think I had enough? Listen to this. So I'm supposed to speak on weekend in Stockholm about, Stockholm is celebrating 250 years of the Freedom of Press Act. And I was invited, and it's a nice thing, a nice occasion to talk. And there is a conference, and I was invited. So the same procedures, German police sent to the Foreign Ministry of Sweden, and the lady in the Foreign Ministry of Sweden is having coffee pause right now, so that he doesn't have time to answer the letter, and it just got lost or somehow. It's like a Monty Python episode. And then that's the joke. The Swedish police is sending a letter to me via the organizer, asking me what do you feel about the threat in this very particular event. What is your evaluation? So I should make my own evaluation of the threat. The German police send them a long letter explaining to them why I need this protection, but they're asking me how do I evaluate the threat of this very particular event. Since when are we evaluating security matters according to subjective feelings? What's wrong? What's wrong with Scandinavian countries? What's wrong? So until now, it's not clear if I can attend this event or not, because if they don't answer the German police by today, I won't go. So why all of this? Why all of these problems? I'm a writer who wrote a book about a guy who died 1400 years ago. That's all. If this guy would have been called Moses or Jesus or Alexander the Great or any other historical figure, it would have been no problem at all. But the problem is, this guy's name is Muhammad. Don't mention Muhammad. Don't mention Islam. You know this wonderful episode of Monty Python? Don't mention the war. Don't mention the war. For those of you who don't know it, it's like a German lady with her family is residing in a British hotel, and she's traumatized by the war, and she doesn't want anybody to mention any word about the war. And like the family is telling the staff in the hotel, don't mention the war, because she starts to cry and she starts to feel bad and so on. And the guy is, because of that fear, he's always keeping mentioning things like, instead of saying herring, he's saying Göring and all of these things. So the woman is getting always exercised and angry, and so don't mention the war, so don't mention Muhammad, don't mention Islam, then you are on the safe side. If my event today would have been called, "We will conquer Europe again," that would be no problem at all. Yeah, that's the sad truth. No politicians will be angry about it, and the person would not need police protection because it's a freedom of speech. But freedom of speech finds its limits when somebody criticized Islam. So what did I write about Muhammad in this book that made people angry? And it's not only radical Muslims, because it's a matter of course that radical Muslims will get angry. But if you criticize Muhammad or the Quran, which I do, you're always besieged by many people who would stop you. First of all, you have European politicians who have businesses with countries like Saudi Arabia, Qatar, Iran, Turkey, and they don't want to annoy those countries. So they don't want Islam to be criticized, because this might mean that they will lose some of the businesses. Saudi Arabia is buying a lot of weapons. from European countries, like Germany. You remember the affair of Salman Rushdie, and as he was invited to Denmark to speak, and then the Iranian government was threatening, if Salman Rushdie will speak in Denmark, we won't buy feta from Denmark anymore. You remember this story? And then the speech of Salman Rushdie was cancelled. So it's something like this, which is still continuing. So you have European countries, politicians who are they are having pragmatism or opportunism governing their decisions. So they don't want to anger those countries, so they prefer not to accept this criticism of Islam. Then you have the lobbyists of those countries in almost all spheres of life in Europe today. So if Qatar and Saudi Arabia, Kuwait and Emirates are making commercials in big newspapers and in mega news channels, so those channels and those newspapers prefer not to annoy them because they get money. Indirectly, of course, they make commercials, but in fact, it's kind of bribing. So it works like this. They have their lobbyists in European Parliament. They have their lobbyists in newspapers. They have their lobbyists at universities because they finance projects in European universities about Islam and in Western universities in the United States about Islamophobia. Muhammad, a guy that should not be criticized, just like a whole religion, like as if Muslims are like a lost species that has to be protected, that don't get closer to them. Many people are dealing with them like that. Muslims are very normal people, and you'll find so many open-minded Muslims who criticize, who accept criticism and everything. So don't deal with Muslims as children. This is that kind of racism, by the way, that, and we'll get back to that. So we said, who is preventing criticism of Islam and Muhammad in Europe? We talked about the politicians who have businesses with Arab countries. We talked about the lobbyists who are paid by those Arab countries to spread a certain image in the media and in universities. And you have the normal Muslims who would blackmail you with their religious feelings. They would say, like, don't talk about the Prophet because this is hurting my religious feeling. I always answer and say, I'm sorry, many things of what your Prophet said are hurting my rational feelings. So why you think that you are the only one who has feelings? Feelings is something that you cannot catch, you cannot define. We can define human rights. And to those human rights, freedom of speech, freedom of press, is the mother of all freedoms. If we don't have this basic freedom, we can forget everything else. Then you have the European intellectuals that they don't want to make their fingers dirty with criticism of Islam. They would consider every kind of criticism towards Islam as bigot, as dirty. No, you don't do that. That's racist. That's racist. Why all of a sudden you make out of a religion a race? We're not talking about black and brown. We are talking about a religion, an ideology that deserves criticism. I'm talking about a historical figure that deserves criticism. Now, why is it a problem to say about somebody who killed people, a murderer? Or somebody who raped women, a rapist? Why is it a problem? The books themselves are saying these things. And why is he the only one that should not be criticized? Why can we criticize every other historical figure but not this very specific one? Why can we paint each historical figure but not that specific one? People would say, you know what? The Prophet is the last stone of identity for Muslims. Leave him in peace. And I answer, maybe he is the last identity stone because we have been leaving him in peace for 1400 years. because nobody got closer to him in 1400 years. So why should I accept this logic? Why should I be obliged to accept that logic? So those kind of intellectuals who are, of course, socialized in the left, political left usually, would try to blackmail me too. Aren't you afraid, Mr. Abdel-Samad, that your criticism of Muhammad and the Quran would incite hatred against Muslims and incite violence against Muslims? I get this question very often. And I always answer, I say, like, to my knowledge, I have never heard of anyone who was slaughtered while passages of my book were recited or quoted. That happened with the Quran every day. The Quran, the book that you are trying to protect from criticism. Is it not paradox? Is it not stupid? And these are the same people who would come and tell you the IS are just misinterpreting the Quran and reading it in the wrong way and misusing it for violence. So if Allah, God, the Almighty, cannot protect His book from being misused, how can I, normal human being, protect my book? No. No. It's not my book which is racist. It's that attitude. It's that attitude considering Muslims to be like children. Oh, stay away from them, otherwise they will throw stones at you. This is, I call it, the bigotry of lowered expectations. They are not like us. They are not so far yet. Don't criticize them. Don't mention the war. Don't mention the Prophet. That's the attitude. I take Muslims very seriously. My entire family are Muslim. Friends are Muslims. I criticize an ideology which is causing misery in the first place upon Muslims themselves. So why should that be racist? And I always differentiate, and that's what I'm calling upon everybody who is criticizing Islam. Don't make the mistake that fundamentalists are always doing. Fundamentalists are expecting a Muslim and Islam to be one unit, one entity. But for me, a human being is much richer than an ideology, is multi-layered, is more interesting. So we should not make the same mistake and consider Muslim means a walking Quran. No. There are many Muslims who want to get rid of this rigid thinking. I'm having a YouTube channel which had been seen until today by 6 million people, Arabic YouTube channel. And people are discussing wonderful discussions. They are tired. We have serious problems. Just yesterday, a Jordanian writer was shot dead because he just shared a cartoon on Facebook describing a Muslim in paradise between two women, asking God to bring him some more wine and to take the empty dishes. That's all. But in fact, you would find similar description of paradise in Quran. So why people are angry? He was shot dead. That are the things we should get angry upon. Have you read about that in Danish newspaper? Yeah. Are people angry about that? No, they will forget it. Most likely this guy should wear a burkini first, and then if he would be shot while wearing the burkini, then the entire world will talk about it, and all of this mechanism will move. All of those lobbyists will talk about human rights for everyone, of course for Muslims too, but for everyone. We cannot divide that. If we criticize racism against Muslims, and I do that, we should criticize the diseases within Muslim communities all over the world. If this is not a matter of course, I don't know about what should we talk. So I wrote a book about Muhammad. I was trying to explain to Muslims and non-Muslims the ambivalence of this character. Because he's not a devil. He's a human being. And his book, the Quran, is not like a manual for death and violence and all of these things. It's including everything. In fact, my new book, which will be published next week in Germany, is having this title: The Quran, the message of love, the message of hatred. And I'm trying in both books to explain what happened so that this character, Muhammad, who started his career as a peaceful preacher, a very sensitive, in fact, with wonderful passages, poetic passages in the Quran, talking about the unity with the universe, about love, peace, tolerance. What has changed him to be a warlord and an intolerant character? And it's all a human story. There's nothing holy about it. I'm trying to get God out of the game, and I'm explaining how he turned from a peaceful preacher into a warlord, the conditions of his time, his own problems with his communities. So this book, the Quran, is documenting all of these wars. This book is full of bitterness and disappointment and hope and hatred and love and intolerance, because it has been written within 23 years, and it has changed its position within those 23 years many times according to the new situation. So how could it be, if it has changed within 23 years, how can we apply today one-to-one after 1400 years? That's the question I'm posting in both books. That's all. That's all. But no, you mention the Prophet. If you mention the Prophet, you have to say peace be upon him. And if you say peace be upon him, you have no chance to be critical. You have to glorify him. But I look at him as the guy he was, as a human being with good sides and bad sides. I'm looking at the Quran as a normal book, which is documenting important information, historical information, the protocol of building up a community. And that has nothing to do with God and all of these holiness. That's all. It must be normal in an enlightened Europe to write such a book. Not only normal, but needed. Everybody would tell you we need a historical, critical consideration or assessment of the Quran. Everybody would say like today, especially those wonderful university professors. But who is doing that? So when was the last time you got a historical critical? You will find many historical assessments of the Quran. But when have you read one of those books which are critical to the Quran from a university professor? It seems that the job of university professors, especially who are concerned with Islamic study, is to defend Islam, to ask for more understanding towards this. They talk about the ambivalence, but then they defend more. No, I'm talking about the real ambivalence. Yes, it has good sides, wonderful sides, and it has horrible sides, and those horrible sides are a danger for our daily life today, for living together. ISIS or IS didn't do anything that Muhammad and his friend didn't do. It's the same copying one-to-one, because they look at this book as a manual. As a manual. So they need to implement. So if the Quran is talking about the unbelievers, for IS, everybody who is not adopting Islam is an unbeliever. So if the Quran is having horrible passages about Christians, they think it's the Christians of today. If it's talking about the Jews, asking to kill the Jews, then they think it is about the Jews of today. And I'm coming and I'm saying, no, no, no. He's talking about those very few thousands Meccan pagans who were in conflict with him. And he is talking about those few hundred Jews who were living around him, and there was a kind of a theological and political competition. And he's not talking about all Christians of today, but he's talking about those very few Christians community around him that he wanted to control, and they didn't give him the opportunity. End of the story. By keeping this book as a human book, we take the dynamite away. But everybody who's insisting that this book should not be untouchable, that this figure of Muhammad should be untouchable, is supporting ISIS to kill in the name of Muhammad, is supporting every terrorist to practice violence in the name of Muhammad, to rape women in the name of Muhammad, to dismiss Jews and Yazidis from their villages and towns in the name of Muhammad. So how to stop that? To relativize the text and to put it in its historical context. I'm doing that, and I'm criticizing the passages, and I'm showing how everything got started. I didn't do anything else. I didn't say anything wrong about Muslims. I'm always showing the ambivalence. So I don't want to be blackmailed with the feelings of anybody. I also have feelings. Nobody's asking me about my feelings. Nobody asks me how it feels like to live 24 hours under police protection. Nobody asks me how to speak with a bulletproof vest. Nobody asks me how it feels like. They don't care. They would go to some believer who is, why don't we care about the feelings of Hindus when we are eating hamburger, actually? They might be hurt. Right? There are thousands and thousands of religions and sects and rituals, and we don't take care of every feeling. So there are some primitive religions, some kind of guys who go to a forest and they take off their clothes and they put fire under a stone and they start to urinate over that stone. Really. And that's a religious ritual. It's okay. It's okay as long as they do it in the forest. Not at school, not in the working place, not in front of the city hall. As simple as that. And that's the position of religion, every religion, by the way, that I'm asking for. To be a private issue, I don't want somebody to urinate in my school. Basically, I don't want somebody to urinate in my head in the first place. I'm defending the right of Muslims to practice their religion freely. I'm defending the right of every critic of Islam who is criticizing Islam. That's the Europe I want to live in. I don't want to live in a Europe that Muslims are excluded because they are Muslims. I don't want to live in a Europe that a critic of Islam is afraid to speak out his opinion. That's what I'm doing. I will continue writing critical books about Muhammad, about Islam, about Quran, until no writer is scared for his life because of criticizing Muhammad. So let's make this as a deal. I make this deal with everyone who is always asking me, you should take care of your criticism and you should take care of the feelings of the people. I am saying I'm taking care of the lives of the people who are killed every day in the name of this prophet, in the name of this book. As long as Muslims are angry because a Danish cartoonist is painting a virtual bomb in the turban of the prophet, but they are not angry when real Muslims are killing real people carrying the flag of the prophet, I'm not going to stop writing. Thank you for your attention, and I'm looking forward to a good discussion with you.